Welcome to Shadow Fable. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, if you still trust what you hear. There's an answering machine sitting in the corner of my bedroom. It's not plugged in. I tell myself that every morning. I look at the empty socket on the wall, the frayed cord lying limp, the blinking red light that shouldn't be blinking. And I say it out loud. It's not plugged in. I say it to remind myself of what should be true, but then I press play. I found the machine 3 weeks ago at a dusty little estate sale on the outskirts of town, the kind you stumble upon on a Sunday afternoon, tucked between old coffee tins and faded military jackets. The house had belonged to a man named Leonard Darr. Died in his sleep. No family, no obituary, the kind of quiet vanishing people don't talk about. The answering machine was buried beneath a pile of yellowed TV guides and a broken cuckoo clock. Old, chunky, 90s era, with a mechanical hiss when it rewound and a speaker that popped before playback. Something about it made me nostalgic. Maybe it reminded me of when voices only came from people you knew, when sound didn't follow you into your pocket and echo into your brain 24/7. It cost me $5. I brought it home, sat it on my dresser, didn't even think to test it. I don't know why. I never expected it to work. But that night, just past 2 a.m., I woke to the click. A mechanical throat clearing. Then a voice, raspy, feminine, whispering like it was leaning against my ear. "Hello? Leo, it's me. You left the porch light on again. You know the moths come in. Call me back, sweetheart. I miss you." I thought I was dreaming, but in the morning I checked the machine. Red light blinking. One new message. I pressed play. Same voice. Same message. It sounded old, tinny, compressed. The kind of voice that came from tapes left in glove compartments too long. I unplugged the machine. The next night, the light blinked again. No plug, no power, just the same dry voice. Same message, but now. The porch light was on. I hadn't turned it on. The first few nights, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it had some kind of battery backup. Maybe it had a capacitor storing charge. Or maybe, and this was the stretch, I'd bought a novelty item someone had rigged with looping audio. But that didn't explain the next message. "Leo, I saw someone in the shed tonight, just standing there, not moving. I thought it was you, but they didn't answer. I'm scared. Please call." There's no shed on my property, never has been. But that night I looked out the window and saw something new in my backyard. A shed, weather-beaten, leaning slightly to one side, padlocked, as if it had always been there and I'd simply forgotten. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, lights off, watching the shed. At 3:17 a.m., a figure walked out of it. Didn't look around, didn't move strangely or make noise, just stood in the middle of my yard, facing the house. I shut the curtains. I didn't look again. The machine blinked in the morning. I didn't want to press play, but my hand moved anyway. "He's inside, Leo. He came in. I locked the door, but he's just standing at the end of the hallway. I can't see his face. There's no face, just skin." That night, I nailed my bedroom door shut. I slept with a crowbar in my hand, blankets pulled over my head like I was a kid again. I didn't check the hallway. I didn't want to know. But sometime during the night, I woke to the sound of the crowbar hitting the floor. My hands were empty, and the machine was playing again, no red light, no tape spinning, just the sound of static, then whispering. Dozens of voices all overlapping, too soft to understand, too many to count. I ripped the thing off the dresser, threw it into the closet, buried it under shoes. It still played the next night. No power, no speaker. Just my name, repeated softly like a lullaby. Leo, 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 Leo. I'm not Leo. That's what I kept telling myself, over and over. I even checked the receipt from the estate sale. The name on the tag had said Property of L. Dar. I looked up public records. Leonard Dar had lived in my neighborhood back in the 80s. Same address, but the house he lived in was bulldozed years ago after a fire. My house was new, built over the ashes. But the shed, the messages, the name. Maybe I was Leo. Maybe I just didn't remember. Or maybe the machine remembered for me. That night, I sat by the machine and waited. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I just watched the blinking light steady as a heartbeat. At exactly 2:33 a.m., it blinked once, then stopped. I pressed play. Leo, he left something for you in the crawl space. I didn't open it, I couldn't, but he said you'd understand. I didn't want to look, but I did. The crawl space beneath my house was small, musty, filled with cobwebs and old insulation. But in the center, like it had been placed recently, was a cardboard box, taped shut. On the lid was a photograph, black and white, faded. A woman, maybe 40, curly hair, sad eyes, the same voice from the machine. On the back of the photo, "You forgot me." Inside the box, audio cassettes. Dozens of them, each labeled with a date, spanning nearly 20 years. Most from the 80s and 90s, one from last week. I don't own a cassette player, but the machine, the answering machine, had a tape deck. So I played one, the woman's voice, calm, conversational, like a journal. March 2nd, 1989. He didn't come home again. I waited by the phone. I wanted to call, but I didn't want to hear silence. March 7th. The dreams are back. The man without a face. He sits at the end of my bed. March 18th. He said he'd make me unforgettable, that he'd bury my voice in plastic and wire and send me through time. March 20th. He said Leo would hear me again one day, that Leo would remember. I stopped the tape. I don't remember this woman. I don't remember anyone. I live alone. No family, no long-term relationships. I've never been married, no kids, no siblings. But something about her voice, the sadness in it, felt like a bruise I couldn't see, like I should feel something. But there was a wall between us. I tried burning the box, it wouldn't catch. I soaked it in lighter fluid, tossed in a match. The flames danced for a moment, then fizzled out, like the fire had changed its mind. The tapes were cold to the touch. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the answering machine again, watching the light. No blinking, no sound. Just silence. Until the phone rang. My landline. I hadn't used it in years. I picked up, silence, then the woman's voice. "I forgive you." Then the line went dead. The next morning, the shed was gone. So was the box, so was the photo. The machine still sits on my dresser, still not plugged in, but it doesn't blink anymore, doesn't play messages. Until last night. New message. "This isn't Leo's house anymore, it's yours now. You listen well." I didn't sleep after that, not from fear anymore, but from resignation. It's like when you stare into fog too long and it begins to feel familiar. Like it's always been there, wrapping gently around your thoughts. That's how it felt now. Less like something haunting me, more like something I'd always been part of. I was inside it, and maybe I had been for longer than I thought. That morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't call in. I just sat at the kitchen table, listening. The machine didn't make a sound, but I could hear it anyway, not audibly but behind everything else. Beneath the refrigerator hum, beneath the soft ticking of the wall clock, a kind of hush, like a breath being held in another room. Around noon, I left the house for the first time in days. I walked 2 blocks to the library. My goal was simple: figure out who Leonard Darr really was, who I really was. The local archives were mostly digitized, but in the back, there were still old microfilm reels and folders full of yellowed newspaper clippings. I asked the clerk if they had anything on Darr. She squinted at me and said, "Again?" I froze. "Sorry?" I asked. She shrugged. "You came in a couple years ago looking for the same thing, about the Darr fire, remember? I thought it was weird then too, because you had this whole folder of stuff already printed out. I didn't remember that, but she handed me the folder anyway, faded manila. My name, my real name, written in blue ink across the tab. Inside, photocopies of obituaries, fire reports, a grainy black and white picture of the burned house, and a transcript, labeled Voicemail Dump, Darr Residence, 1997. The first line, "Leo, he's in the walls now. I can hear him breathing behind the wires." The rest was a blur. Dozens of entries. Most from the same woman, a few from neighbors. Some were just static. One was a child's voice whispering the alphabet backward. I read them all. I don't know why. I just needed to. When I got home, the machine was gone. I searched the bedroom, the closet, under the bed, even the crawl space again. Nothing. For a moment, I felt relief, like a weight had lifted. Like maybe, just maybe, it had ended. Then the landline rang again. I didn't answer. I let it ring. The voicemail clicked on, then silence. Then my voice. "You shouldn't have stopped listening." I ran. I didn't pack. I didn't lock the door. I just grabbed my coat and keys and drove until the city lights blurred behind me. I stayed in a motel 2 towns over. Clean sheets, no machines, no voices. I didn't sleep. I just sat and stared at the beige wallpaper until dawn. I was about to check out when the clerk handed me a package. "No return address," he said. It was heavy, wrapped in brown paper. Inside Dash, the answering machine, and a cassette tape. No label, just my name, written in blocky, uneven letters. Not quite mine, not quite someone else's. I didn't play it. I still haven't. It sits on the motel dresser, like it always belonged there. But I know what it wants. It wants me to listen. That's all it's ever wanted. And if I do, I don't think I'll come back from whatever I hear. I think I'll become part of it. Part of her, part of Leo, part of the voices. But silence is just another kind of listening, isn't it? So maybe I'll press play, not tonight, but soon. And if the machine ends up somewhere else, your attic, your garage, a dusty table at an estate sale, don't plug it in. It doesn't need power, it needs memory, and you'll give it that just by listening.